It's race time here at Valencia, the circuit Ricardo Tormo, for the Formula Regional European Championship organised by ACI Sport and Alpine. The stage is set for the first of two races, one today, one tomorrow, for a packed field, 34 young racing drivers, very few of them older than 20, some as young as 16 years old. And the grid is absolutely resplendent here at this fantastic circuit. The track temperature rising all the time. It was about 20 degrees first thing this morning. It's now 35 degrees. The race will be 30 minutes long plus one further lap. So tyre wear is going to be important, but track position is absolutely everything. And the driver who traditionally is on pole is not there. I'll come to him shortly. The driver who is on pole is alongside, that's the one from second place. That's Hadrian David, a little bit further down the order. In fact, he's down in 8th place on the grid. But the person one needs to look for is the runaway championship leader, car number 26, Grégoire Saucy. He is down 10th on the grid. He pulled in during qualifying, and his front wheels weren't pointing in a straight line. They tried to do what they could do. The tyres didn't feel right. He went out with the front wheel steering wheel still at an angle, still good enough for 10th position. He normally starts on pole. Let's work our way forward. Alex Quing, young British driver racing for Arden, will start 6th on the grid. He's well placed in the championship. He's 7th coming into this race. This is the 8th of the 10 rounds. 2 races at each round, and starting at the sharp end here is absolutely vital. Car number 1 for the Prema Power Team is the Estonian racer Paul Aron, so he could be looking for a good scoop of points here. He's also in that championship mix in equal 4th place. Got 4 drivers in the same score. Mikhail Belov shot to the top of the charts for G4 Racing, but ended up in 4th place. Driver from Russia, car number 30. Car number 64 is Murray Boyer, the top rookie driver in this race, a Spaniard on home ground, racing for Van Amersfoort Racing. You can see the name on the nose. Tattooist building all these chassis for this stepway formula up towards the top. The front row, David Vidales, the top Spaniard on home ground, starts 2nd, also for the Prema Power Team. And then we will move across to a driver coming up from Argentina who's been mighty in sports cars alongside this year's single-seater program. It's MP Motorsport, it's a Gulf livery, it's Franco Colapinto, and he's not a star for the future, he's a star for now. He won both the races last time out at the Red Bull Ring, but one was taken away when he and 15 other drivers got pinged for various offensive, most notably track limits, exceeding them, and that is very much a hot topic here. But there, down 10th on the grid, is Grégoire Saucy. He's the championship leader by a very large margin. In fact, he's sitting on, I'll do the maths very quickly, 77-point advantage, and it's a 25-point victory here, so that is a lot of wins he's got to the good. But right now it's about limitation of the problems. He's got to pick off a few positions, not risk not scoring anything, though. He just wants to put a few more points in the bag. We've got these 2 races this weekend here in Valencia, then Mugello for 2 at the start of October, and then to the conclusion at Monza. It's been a frenetic season. This is the 3rd season of the Formula Regional European Series, and it's grown and grown and grown. The first series champion, Frederick Vesti, starring in the FIA Formula 3 Series this year, a race winner in that. And Gianluca Petikov, he was last year's championship. He's here today at the very, very back of the grid. So he's had a mixed season. He's been racing in other championships as well. Decided to come and keep himself sharp in this, but it hasn't been working for him. So let's see if there's a problem he can work his way up. But to gain position around this circuit is very tricky indeed. The opening lap, particularly through turns 1 and up to the hairpin at the top of the hill at turn 2, is going to be super, super competitive. And just look how far back the cars stretch here, right the way to the entrance to the pit lane there. So that is a huge grid of cars. And as you can see at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo, the track is on a hillside. It slopes down the start-finish straight. The lowest point of the track is indeed turn 1. So on this formation lap, around they go. Heat into the tyres imperative. First thing this morning, they really struggled to get their tyres up to temperature to start setting flying laps. Seldom do you see cars having to weave as hard as they did on their hard rubber to get any heat in at all. But it's much warmer now. Track temperature at least 10 degrees hotter. David Vidales has to have high hopes today. He started the championship in fantastic style. Pole position and victory in the first of the 2 races in the opening round at Imola. But since then, he hasn't won a race. In fact, since then, he hasn't been on the podium, so massively important. Alongside Franco Colapinto on the front row, then Boyer, Mary Boyer and Michael Beloff on row number 2. Paul Aron and Alex Quinn on row 3. You look at the enormous spread of nationalities. Isaac Hadjar and Hadrian David, 2 French teammates for Race GP. Then Gabriel Bortoleto, the best of the Brazilians, and Gregoire Saucy, Swiss, but the championship leader. Dino Beganovic from Sweden and Zane Maloney from Barbados, I beg his pardon. Then Francesco Pizzi from Italy, Kaz Havercourt from the Netherlands. Gabriele Mini, Italian racer, second generation racer from the Deli Guanti family, so that's Pietro. 16th on the grid, middle order. One of the many Finns, William Alatalo and Eduardo Barrichello. Yes, that Barrichello blood strain. And haven't seen if Rubens is here supporting him on, but such a strong family. Delano van der Hoff leading the Spanish F4 Championship, making his debut this weekend for MP Motorsport, will start 19th. That's a good job from him. Lorenzo Fluxer alongside. Then Olivia Goethe, a young Danish racer, and Alexandra Bardinot. They start towards the second half of the grid. Then Rosso and another Finn in the race. Many Finns in this race. That's Patrick Pasma. And Tom Smith up from Australia. Jasin Ferrati for Kick Motorsport. Running down the order, Jose Garfias and Axel Noss. Then Pesky and Lena Buller, 30th and 31st. Lena and Belen Garcia, the 2 female racers, 30th and 31st in this race. Nicola Marinangeli, and then Gianluca Petikov, who was champion last year, and Nico Gola right at the back of the field. So let's just reiterate, we've got 30 minutes of racing plus 1 further lap. The light blue and orange liveried car of Franco Colapinto will start on pole position. That's for the Dutch team MP Motorsport, alongside David Vidales, the red and white of Prema Power Team. Then Mary Boyer for Van Amersfoort Racing and Michael Beloff. They're the second row. The grid takes a while to form up, but they've all snaked through the final corner. Last few cars coming into position. 34 cars in all. Will we have 34 cars by the time we get out of turn number 1? It's a tight left-hander that fields the cars up the field. It's about a 70 degree angle. Oh, actually, last few cars still coming out of turn 13 and 14. So a long hold on for the drivers at the front. Waved yellow flags at the back, waiting for the last couple of cars to come into position. Final car to come around should be Nico Gola, black and red car. There it is, and that had a little fall off into the gravel. That's why that ended up at the very back of the pack. But up the front, all looks clean. The flags are waving. In fact, we've got 1 car missing. I know it's about 10 places before the end of the grid. We'll get to that later. Looks like a clean start from the pole man, Franco Colapinto, determined to come across the nose of David Vidales. That could have backfired, because I think David's carrying a bit more momentum down to the first corner. No, he isn't quite. Big challenge from the second row as well, but leading into turn 1 was imperative. I thought there was a little bit too much of a move from Franco Colapinto, but 34 cars, 33 cars with one not having made the start, coming in to the first corner and getting out. Up to the top of the hill at turn 2 they go. David Vidales trying to challenge around the outside. Doesn't work. Tucks in behind as they go down through the kink at turn 3. Down to turn 4. We've had no changes to position the next couple of places. So it's running in grid order. The second of the Prema cars, that should be Paul Aron in 5th. That tallies as well. So where's the move going to come? Dive up the inside. Having a little look up into turn 6, but then the line is compromised. That was the runner in 4th place, and I think that will be an opportunity for Paul Aron to maybe have an attack through the kink at 7. Then turn 8 is the next tricky corner. Nose to tail from 1st to 33rd. No one making a gamble to try and get up the inside just yet, but it's Colapinto holding that lead. Beloff's listed in 2nd place, Paul Aron in 3rd, Alex Quinn in 4th. I fancy it's still David Vidales in 2nd place. Yes, it is. The graphic not entirely, maybe a little bit transponder problem there, because it's number 12 still in 2nd place. I am deeply impressed. I really thought all these drivers, so many 16 and 17-year-olds, 1 year out of karting, 1st year out of karting even, some of them, and really being very, very clean and tidy. But then again, they'll have learned racing at Imola, Barcelona, Monaco, etc., etc. But a good lead at the end of the opening lap. Let's see what that is. About half a second. Well, nearly a whole second. Franco Colapinto, in fact, yes, he really got away. Good exit from the final corner. That is crucial. Of course, people looking to make an overtaking manoeuvre into turn 1. One of those being pulled off. I think that might be Bortoleto around middle order, making his way up a position or 2. But at the end of the opening lap, it was Franco Colapinto from David Vidales, Mary Boyer, Paul Aron got ahead of Michael Beloff. That was the place change just at the end of that opening lap. 4th became 5th and 5th became 4th. Alex Quinn held on to 6th place. Hadrian David likewise 7th. Zane Maloney moved up to 8th place overall. He started outside the top 10, but he was someone who flattered to deceive in qualifying. and suggested he could have qualified a whole lot higher. So look out for Zayn. He's on the charge, and he's well placed in the championship. He's third overall. This is a really, really impressive opening couple of laps from our race leader, Franco Colapinto. He was the best part of a second clear at the end of the opening lap, but it looks so it's almost doubled that. Still hanging on to second place, the top Spaniard, David Vidal, is still third place. Mary Boyer, car number 64, the top rookie, coming up the slope. Ooh, a little bit of locked brakes there as the field goes into turn 11. That's a tight right-hand hairpin, and then they get this sweep into turn 12. Now we're looking at the field coming through 13, a long, long, long left-hander. Then it tightens into the final corner, 14. Onto the start-finish straight. Get all your wheels out on the green. No wheels left on the red and white, and you will get a track limit warning. Get enough of those, and the flag will make it quite plain. You're going to have a drive-through penalty, or perhaps time added at the end of the race. Certainly it was a problem for all of these drivers, pretty much all of these drivers at Red Bull Racing a few weeks ago. And the car running around in about 5th place. Will that make it Michael Beloff running very wide indeed out of the exit of turn 1. Looking to see where the next move is going to come from. Michael Beloff trying to find his way back, having lost the position on that opening lap of the race. But Franco Colapinto, he only in fact gained a 1/10 of a second. Looks like he gained more than that, but that was an important break for him on the opening lap. I thought he'd risked a bit much going hard from pit wall side to the other side to block the inside line into turn 1. I really fancied David Vidal had more momentum going down into turn 1, but unfortunately he didn't have track position. He was on the outside. Mary Boyer in third, racing for Van Amersfoort Racing, still leading by far the top rookie. The next rookie is Isaac Hadjar, who started in 7th, has fallen to 9th, so 6 places clear. So rookie points will be going at this order, at this point, to Mary Boyer. There is one car way behind the rest. Patrick Pasma has got going. That must have been the car missing from the grid. That would tally. Should have been starting 24th, must have started from pit exit. He's only now, as the racers go onto their 4th lap, he's only just getting at turn 7. He's half a lap down. Looking for place changes. Really the only one towards the tail of that 3rd lap was Gianluca Petikov, last year's champion, who is gradually picking off positions, but he's only got up to 29th so far, so a long way to go. Bear in mind this race is half an hour plus 1 further lap, so 25 minutes or so remaining in the race. He's got time to pick off more, but certainly not to get towards the points, and the points go from 1st, which is 25 points, to 1 point for 10th place overall. And I think at this point in the race, it's who's bottled up behind whom. I still fancy Mary Boyer's got some quick pace. In fact, set the fastest lap of the race last time around in 3rd place, so needs to get past David Vidal. His Spanish pride at stake here. And for Franco Colapinto, just looking comfortable in the lead of the race. Under a second now, though. It went out to nearly 1.1 seconds. It's 0.879 of a second. And I think David Vidal is just starting to pick up the pace. Mary Boyer closed slightly in 3rd place last time. But I think they're all quite comfortable running as they are at the moment. And as I say that, Franco Colapinto gets more and more comfortable. I haven't talked too much about Gregoire Saucy. Not only did he start down in 10th position, I was watching the first 5 in the opening laps. Of course, he didn't get into trouble then. He's actually gone back to 12th place overall. Will there be any changes? The championship leader doesn't want to take risks, but he does need to just put a few more points in the bank. Then again, with a 73-point advantage, a 77-point advantage, he's still so pretty, he could afford to, you know, have a race in which he doesn't pick up a score, because across the course of the season so far, Saucy has been so consistent. Listen to this: 5th, first, 22nd. That's not good. 2 retirements, but then first, 8th, 5th, first. That is a lot of firsts, and no wonder he is so far clear, the Swiss racer. Right now, Saucy is tucked in behind the Brazilian Gabriel Bortoleto, fighting over 11th place between the pair of them. First to second, it goes out by about a 1/10 of a second, comes back the other way. David Vidal is doing his best to try and drop Mary Boyer, who's 3/4 of a second back in 3rd place. They go the first 3. The red and white nose of Paul Aron's car comes through in 4th place. That's number 1. Then Michael Beloff tucked in behind. But up front, Franco Colapinto, excuse me, looks absolutely unflappable. But I'm just sensing that David Vidales is starting to turn up the wick, see if he can close in. It was 0.874 of a second at the end of the last lap, just 0.005 of a second between them in terms of their lap pace. Mary Boyer tried to hang on, then there's that little gap back to Paul Aron, and I think with each lap it's just eking out a tiny bit more to leave the first 3 to fight amongst themselves. 0.874 of a second becomes 0.835. My eyes did not deceive me. David Vidales, the Spaniard, is beginning to close in that 2nd place. Mary Boyer trying to hang on behind. First 3 cars covered by just 1.7 seconds. What can Paul Aron do? Michael Beloff was ahead on the grid, but Michael demoted by the Estonian in number 1 and doesn't seem to be close enough to push him at this point in the circuit. Michael Beloff, car number 30, black and white livery. That's the livery of G4 Racing. Again, drivers are being very cautious about not using too much of the curb, because we've been told at this meeting if they go beyond the red and white band that lies outside the white line that demarcates the edge of the circuit, if they get all 4 wheels onto the green painted area beyond, then punishments will come their way. Just having a little look to see if we've lost one of the cars. My screen graphic has car number 19, Rosso. Andrea Rosso from FA Racing stuck. Maybe it's a glitch on the screen. Now Zane Maloney is the driver who's picked his way up the order. Zane started from 12th, having put in some really promising sectors. Didn't maybe knit all the laps together in qualifying, but working their way forward. British Formula 4 champion 2 years ago. Driver from Barbados, definitely one to watch. And a little more overtaking about to happen towards the 20th position as their cars come down over the start-finish line. And in fact, it was Eduardo Barrichello doing that manoeuvre on Olivier Goethe. So Brazilian going forward and the Dane going back. 18th became 19th and vice versa. First to second down again. 0.777 of a second. Up the hill they go from turn 5 to turn 6. Argentinian turns in first. The Spanish David Vidales follows through just in behind, and Mary Boyer hanging on the background. So for Spanish fans, 2 of the top 3 runners are theirs, and the top rookie is also a Spaniard. It's also Mary Boyer in 3rd place. Then there's that gap of about 1.5 seconds, I would think now, maybe marginally more than that, back to Paul Aron. So the first 3 are escaping. And Patrick Pasma, who started stone last, to set the fastest lap of the race so far. No, 2nd fastest lap of the race so far, running totally on his own, only now going down the slope, turn 3 and turn 4, while the leader is going through 13 over the crest, down the drop into 14. This time around, the chasing David Vidales is closer. Mary Boyer is getting a good view of this, but is beginning to fall off the tail of that. Paul Aron trying his best to catch up. He's running in 4th place in number 1. Those first 3 cars well clear. It's 0.713. We are dealing in about a 20th of a second gain each time. Almost precisely a second between David Vidales in 2nd in the 12 and 64 of Mary Boyer, a compatriot fellow Spaniard in 3rd place. And impressively, the drivers all starting to pick up their lap speed. But right now, Franco Colapinto does appear to have things under control. And my concerns about Angelo Rosso's graphic being stuck on the screen, it has freed itself, and Rosso's still running in a decent position, 23rd position overall. So can David Vidales first of all catch Franco Colapinto, and then of course the second question is, can he get past? And for Mary Boyer, maybe the idea is just to hang on to their tails, and then when they slow each other down, when they get into a real scrap for the lead, that might be the moment for Mary to benefit, and certainly would be able to start closing up. So give it a few more laps at this race. David Vidales chipping away. 0.713 of a second is the gap between Colapinto in the lead and Vidales in 2nd place. And of course, if they finish in this order at the end of 30 minutes plus one further lap, it'll be an all Spanish-speaking podium, one Argentinian and two Spaniards. Now, of course, we'll find out later in the race who has been pressing how hard on their tyres, because you may find some drivers starting to back it out a bit. But having seen the way it took a while to get heat in this morning, I think these tyres are pretty durable. Fastest lap of the race last time around from David Vidales. He's down to 0.58 of a second. He's gaining, not only gaining, but incrementally gaining on Franco Colapinto. But Colapinto will then just have to change from pressing on to defending. Getting towards the halfway point in this race. Just under 17 minutes remain. Colapinto down into turn 8. It runs long, 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 and then keep arcing to the left. You go down the slope, and then the flick through 9 to the left, the flick through 10 to the right, and then slow it right down. Hit the brakes hard for turn 11. The double right-handed hairpin brings the cars back across the short straight opposite the pits. You can just look up the slopes in the pit lane. You can see them going between the branches of the shrubbery there, this garden circuit. But I fancy out of turn 12 suddenly David Vidales is that little bit closer. He's going to be close enough to get a really sensible slipstream if he can have a tidy exit from turn 14, a little bit loose. And in fact, that time around it was Mary Boyer who went really, really wide, and therefore will be dropping back a bit. 0.539, actually a little bit of gain there for our race leader. No, in fact, the maths went the other way. A little bit of a gain for David Vidales, but the clock is counting down. He's not gaining a tenth of a second each time, every time. He needs to do that. He needs to get in with a few laps to go to make a challenge, but maybe Franco Colapinto is just being cautious. Actually, this last half lap, it's suddenly going the way of the Argentinian leading the race. He's just starting to stretch his legs. Maybe he's so good he was just doing enough to stay sweet at the front of the field, or maybe it was one minor slip-up there from David Vidales. I didn't see a slip-up though, so I think I'm sensing it's the fact that maybe Franco Colapinto is controlling his usage of tyres very well indeed. And of course, it's always a lesson that's so crucial to learn in the junior single-seater formulae. And I must say, the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine is very impressive indeed. The sheer number of cars, the professionalism of the teams, and they're all learning in these multi-car setups. They might have put their school books aside for the course of the racing season, but they're certainly learning hard out on the circuit. And I really sense, yes, Franco Colapinto, my eyes do not deceive me, his first sector has just flown by. He's put in the fastest first sector of anyone. He also owns the second fastest sector, sorry, the fastest second sector as well. So I think he's controlling this race very well indeed. Yellow at turn 5, number 13 has lost out down there. It's Jasin Ferrati. Not seen a report about getting going all over again. You get this, two cars, 11 and 19. Black and white warning flags, and 13 for disrespecting track limits. That's Gianluca Petikov, who continues to pick off places. One of them, 19, Angelo Rosso, had a little bit of a spin. So a few people starting to go a little wider than the officials would want, but the person who's picked up the pace is the race leader, Franco Colapinto, was down to 0.53 of a second. It's now 1.13 of a second. Colapinto ahead of David Vidales. Last time around he gained 0.6 of a second. You have to feel for the Spaniard, feel for Vidales. He was chipping away a tenth of a second here, a tenth of a second there, and then in the course of one lap, the fastest lap of the race so far, Franco Colapinto just went, okay, this is how you do it. I'm now starting to be ready to attack, and I think that's a mortal blow for David Vidales, but it's a question of how David manages the next few laps. Maybe he'll dare to press as hard. Keeping an eye also on the rookie section for the drivers with a lesser amount of experience, and Mary Boyer still leading that in third place overall. Certainly nothing that Paul Aron has been able to do, lapping at a very similar sort of pace, but he's still staying in fourth place. And now out of turn 13, 14 onto the start-finish straight. Franco Colapinto has not any longer got a 1.13 second advantage. It looks though it's come down, 0.639, so suddenly a half-second gain the other way. We're almost back to where we were about 3 laps ago. And the good news for the driver in second place, David Vidales, is bit by bit, Mary Boyer in 64, the leading rookie, is dropping back. He's got breathing space from behind now. Alexandre Bardinot has had a moment out of turn 5 and is a lap behind and will soon be 2 laps down. In fact, the car is listed as being stationary on the timing screen. Alexandre running for FA Racing alongside Gabriel Bortoletto and Andrea Rosso. .63 of a second is the gap between first and second. Again, slight glitch on the graphics. We've got, that's better. David Vidal is in third place, Mary Boyer fourth. I see what happened. It was a scrolling through, but it's still just comfortable in the lead of the race for Franco Colapinto. But I just sense that David Vidal is, maybe he made a slip up. That's how he suddenly lost 0.6 of a second in the space of a lap. Maybe then a mistake came from Franco Colapinto, because they've been trading in tenths of a second at the very most. They went 0.6 of a second one way, then 0.5, half a second coming back the other way. And over the start-finish line, at the completion of 12 laps, it's 0.73 of a second. It's very even, and Mary Boyer just starting to fall away a little bit. They can lap in the mid 1 minute 30s, and Mary 1 minute 30.9. Not a lot in it, but certainly the first two have finally made their break. A great high shot. You see down onto the cars, see how they're handling. I must say, 8 races into this 10-race championship on some fantastic race circuits. I think the Formula Regional European teams have got a very, very good handle on their Tattoo chassis. Certainly don't look too lurid to drive nice and neutral, which is just what novice or less experienced single-seater drivers want. Franco Colapinto leading this race, driver up from Argentina. He's just had a remarkable 18 months in racing and come from pretty much nowhere to suddenly be a feature. He was Spanish Formula 4 champion here, so he knows the circuit very well, in 2019, taking 11 wins, but he also raced in the Euro Formula Open Series, which is for Formula 3 type cars. European Formula Renault had a very busy 2019, went to New Zealand and was third in the Toyota Racing Series at the start of 2020. Third in European Formula Renault, but this year was remarkable. Started the year racing in the Asian Le Mans Series in P2 sports cars, did well in that, finished third in that. Then he came across to race in the European Le Mans Series with Nick de Vries and Roman Rusinov for Two-Drive Racing, and he also contested the World Endurance Championship with them in the P2 class. So these will feel very different, but he's clearly very good in both, because here he is now just starting to stretch his advantage again. 0.85 of a second to the good. Bear in mind, this is from a driver who only turned 17 earlier this year. Sorry, 18. Let's do the maths properly. So is Colapinto comfortable, or is he hanging on, nursing something that's a problem? Certainly his pace suggests nothing of the sort. He's very comfortable indeed. 8.85 of a second to the good. Has David Vidal got any more tricks in the locker? And don't forget, the clock will count down to 0. We've got 9 minutes 20 seconds remaining, but then there is one further lap. It's 30 minutes, then one further lap, and we'll do this again, all over again tomorrow. And the format will be the same. We'll have a 20-minute qualifying session. Hopefully tomorrow's won't be interrupted by a red flag, pretty much right in the middle. And then we'll have a similar length race tomorrow afternoon. But for Gregoire Saucy, who came here leading with a sizable points advantage, at the moment he's still running outside the points that go down to 10th. He's in 12th place. He's still behind Gabriel Bortoletto, but perhaps he just has to accept this one is gone from him and points will not be coming his way. But he's the one driver in the field who can afford to shed a few points, because in a championship for identical cars with top teams like these, you very seldom get a driver who can just be so consistently excellent, not just to chalk up wins, but to constantly chalk up the points. And for once, it looks they're not coming his way. 10th on the grid at the start, but with that question mark, he felt he was driving. The car felt weird, felt as though the steering wheel was not true to him. And things are not looking great for points. However, there can be driver penalties. There are going to be driver penalties. In car number 5, Patrick Pasma, who started stone last from the pit lane, he's about to pick up a penalty. Won't matter too much. He's running 33rd of the 34 cars. In fact, he's last of the 33 runners. Gap first to second as the fans look down from the grandstands. They're probably going to be looking at a few stars of the future. But you have to say it's not too difficult to pick out Franco Colapinto as one of those. We know Grégoire Saucy is another, but he a little bit older, the Swiss driver, actually. He's born in 1999. Imagine that, being born in the 20th century. Only just mine. It's 29th of December, so very nearly a boy of the millennium. But Grégoire has more seasons. He was racing in 2017, the European Formula Renault Series, and the Italian F4. So he's got a fair few seasons. He's got 4 seasons of single-seater experience behind him. But this season, he's used all those to good effect. But unfortunately for him today, starting down in 10th position, points have been difficult. And quite possibly the car is still slightly malign underneath him. No such problems for Franco Colapinto and David Vidales. Just over half a second between them, but the clock is counting down. It will continue to count down until it gets to 0, and then we'll have one further lap. It looks though the blue and orange car of the Argentinian Franco Colapinto has all the answers. The red and white version for the Prema Power team for David Vidales, the Spanish racer on home ground. He can push, he can attack, but he's yet to get close enough to make a passing manoeuvre. Behind them there's a slight gap. It's now at 2.5 seconds. The gap, 2 seconds. The gap back from David Vidales to Mari Boyer. Mari comfortable, 1 and a bit seconds ahead of Paul Aron. 5th place, Michael Beloff. 6th place, Alex Quinn. So not a lot has changed in the top order. But it's a question of, can David Vidales get close enough to mount a move, make a challenge on Franco Colapinto? And it's looking very, very comfortable indeed for the race leader. And they switched through 12 into 13 they go. It keeps curving to the left. It rises, it starts to fall. The fall suddenly steepens, the corner tightens, and then it's turn 14. And again, it looks easily comfortable for Franco Colapinto. His pit board will be telling him how many minutes to go, plus, of course, that further lap. But all looks under control for the Argentinian. 2nd place looking very safe for David Vidales. That'll be his best result since the opening race of the season, which he won at Imola. So he's back on form for the Prema Power team. New drivers moving around, looking as though they're considering an overtaking manoeuvre, but it's not happening. I fancy we might get some from Zane Maloney, who fell down the order, rose up the order, gained 4 places from his starting position, but he's staying in 8th place. 46, getting a little bit close in the action. That's Gabriel Mini. In 26, Grégoire Saucy still in 12th place overall, half a second clear of Francesco Pizzi. There is the Swiss driver. As you can see, as you look down the order, it's very close indeed. Right, Franco Colapinto leading this Formula Regional European Championship race by 0.65 of a second with 4.5 minutes, plus 1 further lap from David Vidales, Mari Boyer, Paul Aron, Michael Beloff, Alex Quinn, Hadrian David, and Zane Maloney. The Barbadian. Grégoire Saucy, car number 26, our championship leader, our runaway championship leader, 12th place, outside the points. .7, .6, .5, that seems to be this constant gap between 1st and 2nd, between Franco Colapinto and David Vidales. Mari Boyer now 2.6 seconds further back, not close enough to trouble them. And haven't mentioned for a while Delano Van 't Hoff, young Dutch racer who's making his debut here this weekend, has been racing in the Spanish Formula 4 Championship. He started in, I think it was 19th place, yes it was, for MP Motorsport. He's only lost 1 position to 20th. That is very good indeed, because getting a lap together in qualifying is one thing, troubled as it was with the red flag being shown halfway through, but to race hard against people who've been racing these cars all season is very good. So I think we're looking at a very promising young driver in Delano Van 't Hoff. Eduardo Barrichello running a couple of positions further ahead, car number 91. Eduardo, obviously son of the great Rubens Barrichello. He's racing for JD Motorsport. Of course, the Barrichello family originally came from Italy, so Rubens, when he arrived in Europe to race in Formula Opel Lotus, as it was back then, luckily had Italian under his belt. This is something spoken from time to time and certainly understood in the family home back in Sao Paulo. But up front, it's the driver from Argentina who's leading the day, leading the way. Franco Colapinto from Buenos Aires. David Vidales pushing harder. Driver from Leon in Spain, 0.544 of a second. He's just got into that zone where he's close, but not close enough. And I must say, from what I'm seeing, Franco Colapinto has the ability to put his car where he wants to. He's controlling this race very nicely indeed. And due to calendar clashes, Franco hasn't done all the races. Missed the opening round at Imola. Was withdrawn at Monaco. Best results was a second place at Zandvoort back in June until they went to the Red Bull Ring. First the checkered flag in both of the Formula Regional European races, but the second one was transmuted into fourth place overall because exceeding track limits and time penalties went with that, dropped him down the order, but he could be about to bag another win in the championship here this weekend. It'd be, if it counts, it'll be his second official one of the year, but he's just shown when he can come into the championship, he can deliver at the very top level. David Vidales pushing on, pushing hard, as you'd expect, but at the moment not being rewarded. Mari Boyer comfortable in third. Michael Beloff has never been able to put the pressure on Paul Aron to get past him to then go back at Mari Boyer, because Michael started fourth, has been running fifth, can't get back to fourth, and that really has helped Mari running in second place. You can see Mari in the background of the shot, but controlling matters from the front of the field. Into the final minute of official time before we get that one bonus lap added to the end of it all. But Franco Colapinto looks smooth, looks clean, looks tidy. David Vidal tidy as well in behind, but it does look as though this is going to be really, really tricky for anybody to depose Colapinto. There's a bit of a twitch there. I actually fancied he was trying to wipe his visor. I'm not sure he'd really want to do that when he was turning into turn 6. A little twitch over the curbing. And then with the curbing here, it's very flat, it's easy to run over the top of, and also after the GT World Challenge session there was an awful lot of tyre debris on the outside, so if you run over the top and just where you've got very little grip on the painted tarmac, you can then have a film of tyre deposit, then it's very, very slippery indeed, and a small slip up can become a big one. Through turn 12 they go, clattering over the curves, into the left-hander at turn 13. It's still Franco Colapinto. David Vidal is keeping him honest, keeping him on his toes. Vidal has made a slightly better run out of turn 14 onto the start for the straight, over the crest, past the pit lane they go. Now it slopes gently down towards the first corner of the lap. And the gap is still a whisker over half a second, 0.570 of a second. A little bit wide there from Colapinto. Smoother run from Vitales, smoother line, up the hill they go, down the hill they come. Turns 4 and 5. Nicely controlled. I can't see a move coming from David Vidales, and David sort of trying to claw his way back into the top 10 of the championship. Just managed that last time out in Austria, but he's down in 10th. At this pace, that looks, you have to ask why he was only down in 10th place, because he's driven beautifully, but driving probably even better. Franco Colapinto, an eye to the front, an eye to his mirrors. Still about 0.6, 0.5 of a second, nothing in it. Now look, you'll notice we had 30 minutes, that has elapsed, we're on to the final lap. This is the bonus lap of the race, and I can't see a move coming from Vidales. He's pushed, he's worked hard. Closes in, closer than ever before, but it's not going to go his way surely. Out of turn 14 for the final time. This is the final lap of the race. This is Franco Colapinto in celebration form. He put another one in the bag. Great chase from David Vidales. He ended up eventually 0.4 of a second in arrears, but got close, but just couldn't do enough. Mari Boyer comes across car 64 to be third overall and the top rookie runner. Fifth will be Paul Aron. fifth Michael Bellos, 6th Alex Quinn, 7th Adrian David, 8th Zane Maloney, 9 the second of the rookies, Isak Hadja, and Dino Boganovic, the third of the rookies, in 10th place overall. So, good race, nicely controlled by Franco Colapinto. There was a desire to go past from David Vidales, but just wasn't prepared to risk it all that could have ended up with a car in the gravel. Take the points, see how far you can go. You've got the second of the races here. This will be Sunday, tomorrow, at Valencia. Then a pair of them, the 9th and 10th of October at Mugello, fabulous circuit in Italy, and then Monza, the home of Italian motorsport, the 30th and 31st of October. Our championship leader started 10th with a problem with the car, came home 12th, no points whatsoever. With 25 points for a win, it does mean that Franco Colapinto has gained a sizable handful, but because he missed rounds, he's only 8th coming in here. But the important thing for Grégoire Saucy, his closest challenger, Adrian David, only picked up the points for 7th place overall, 6 points for 7th, so that's fine. The advantage is now 71 points, down from 77. Rare to find an advantage as large as that in international junior single-seaters, but for Grégoire Saucy, get your bad luck out of the way, and hopefully whatever's wrong with the car can be fixed for tomorrow. Then we'll see him back at the front where he has been all season. So it was close, and what that showed us was the circuit Ricardo Tormo, great for close racing, very bad for attempted manoeuvres for overtaking, and maybe these drivers are under strict instruction, these teenage drivers, to not damage their cars because they've got a race tomorrow. Had a few spinners, but they seem to be pretty much without consequence. So, overlaid on the glorious blowing oleanders here, it's Franco Colapinto with 21 laps under his belt, but a .417 second advantage over David Vidales. Mari Boyer making it 2 Spaniards in the top 3 and finishing as the top rookie. Paul Aron in 4th, and 5th place went to Michael Beloff, who had a good run in the second half of the race. But really that race was all about Franco Colapinto getting it right from pole position, controlling the race from the front, and resisting everything that David Vidales threw his way. So no Spanish win on home ground, but for David Vidales, his first race of the season was a victory, but since then hasn't been on the podium. He'll be very happy indeed with that second place on the track. But as I say that, I see time penalties being added to the total time of the race for many of those behind. So I think the results on the screen will be changing as the stewards list all of those who have exceeded track limits. And it's very much the sort of a couple of words for modern motor racing. But leaping out of the race-winning car, sorry, that's Mari Boyer getting out of 3rd place for Van Amersfoort Racing, I beg your pardon. It's the order they come in, but Franco Colapinto, there he is now, savouring his in-lap. He's the 3rd car to the collection area, and it's parked up in front of board number 1. So the Argentinian racer does it again. 2nd place for David Vidales, so he'll be happy with that at home. But for Franco Colapinto, making a bit of a name for himself, 2021 is a supreme season for this young Argentinian, and you can see how much that means. He's not going to win this championship, having missed rounds, but he is going to put his name right up there in the highlights.
The clean sweep continues.
Well, you can hear the team saying the clean sweep continues, but we know full well the second of those, the middle one, the second of the 2 races in Austria, was taken away. A penalty dropped him to 4th. But in terms of putting your mark on a championship, another first to the checkered flag for Franco Colapinto. So off to the weigh-in, another job very, very well done. And it starts to possibly demoralise your rivals a little bit when you're racing equal equipment and you can keep just doing enough to beat them. Well, David Vidales enjoyed that battle. Good to hear his comments there. That was good, but no one really made a dive up the inside. I think points at this point in the year just too important for all of them. But for whatever David Vidales could do, whatever he threw at Franco Colapinto, Franco seemed to have the answers.
David? Franco?
Not only do the drivers need to learn the routine of the racing car, they need to know the regimen of not just getting weighed, but being where to get to the podium. Often a labyrinthine route through a race control building, but they'll be taken through the back and up to the podium that lies between the control tower and the rest. But from the start of the race, from the formation lap, it was very tidy indeed. And when it was a start, Franco Colapinto decided, come what may, he was going to cover the inside line down into turn 1. David Vidales had more momentum but was on the outside line, so he started second on the grid and slotted into second place. In behind, all was under control. Michael Beloff lost a position as Paul Aron went through, but up at the top of the hill for the first time. There was a challenge around the outside, but then there's the kink at turn 3. And Franco Colapinto moved across, covered the move, and held on to the lead of the race. And that really was the story of the race. Even though the advantage went out and out and out for Franco Colapinto, then it came back in and in and in all over again because David Vidales was on a charge, sensing perhaps he might be able to take a second win of the year. Another car in the liveries of the race leader in the Gulf colours was Oliver Goethe, running around in the middle order of the race, but it was blue and orange very much at the sharp end, being challenged by the red and white of the Prema Power team, but Van Amersfoort Racing having a couple of cars right up at the sharp end of the field. David Vidales and 12 pushed and pushed, but always he was just that little bit behind the race leader. A couple of times got almost close enough to make a challenge. The challenges tended to be happening further down the order. You had Gianluca Petikov picking his way up bit by bit, having started from the tail of the grid. Patrick Pasma started stone last. All he could do was chase half a lap down and try and close in on the tail of the field. But up front, just absolutely no problems. And Franco Colapinto at the end, coming across the line, weaving his victory dance. 0.4 of a second to the good over David Vidales. And Mari Boyer in the background in car number 64, making it 2 Spaniards on home ground, heading up towards the podium. But a very, very impressive run for Franco Colapinto. There are the top 3 finishers in the Formula Regional European Series. And did a great job. Series organised by ACI Sport and Alpine. They'll be very pleased indeed with these 3 young drivers. You can see the smiles on the eyes of our race winner there, Franco Colapinto. So the first driver called out, the driver in 3rd place, Mari Boyer for VAR for Van Amersfoort Racing, and he's very pleased with that indeed, certainly putting a smile on his season. And that's his first podium finish. Let's hope he keeps that. There are some penalties being applied. And a second Spaniard onto the podium. Won the opening race of the season, hasn't been on the podium since, and 2nd place, well, that's doing very nicely for David Vidales. Handshake with his compatriot. And Franco Colapinto, this is a driver who knows his way to the top step of a podium. He's come into this championship confused in some ways by racing P2 sports prototypes cars, but he seems to be winning in either of them. And so the trophies awarded, and MP Motorsport, also team representative going up there. So applause following the Argentinian national anthem for the driver for MP Motorsport, the driver by the name of Franco Colapinto. First on the track, first with the bubbly. It's looking like a very, very good weekend. And for our championship leader by a large margin coming in, no points whatsoever from Gregoire Saucy. Started down in 10th. He'll just have to put a line through that and hope tomorrow morning's qualifying that he'll have the feel of the car that he didn't have this morning. Was convinced the steering wheel was at a wrong angle, and then in the race lost a couple of positions in the early lap sort out and couldn't recover, couldn't get back up, finished in 12th place. But he can forget this one as long as he finds a reason for why it wasn't feeling good. But for Franco Colapinto, the feeling he wants to keep is the feeling he has right now, because he's on the crest of a wave. Turned up and was first to checkered flag in both of the races last time out at Red Bull Ring. The second of those was taken away with a penalty, dropping him to 4th, but he's come here and done it all over again. So his Dutch team, MP Motorsport, will be very happy indeed with him. and they will have to change their shirts. A lesson someone should learn on the podium, but all good fun. So Franco Colapinto, Saturday at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo is very much what he wanted. It's pole position and race victory, the haul of points. And of course, at this point, photographs, but they do have to focus. Another day of racing ahead of them. Hopefully after a meal by the harbour side in Valencia this evening. It's certainly nice to be down. And after yesterday when it was grey and not as warm, today it's absolutely fabulous. And who wouldn't like racing around this great fun circuit? As you can see, look in the background, you can see almost all of it. That's the view that greets Franco Colapinto. Looks like he's about to be up to some mischief. And stand without paying attention beneath the podium. That's what you get. So he was attentive on the race circuit and spotted the opportunity and grabbed it as well as he waits to complete his podium ceremonies. But it's been a very good first day here, the Saturday at the circuit, Ricardo Tormo. And for Franco Colapinto, he's going to have to start building a very, very large trophy cabinet back home in Argentina, one feels. See you tomorrow comes a message across the podium, but his rivals are going to have to hope that someone else can get on pole tomorrow. David Vidales, who finished second here on Saturday in Valencia, certainly might have something to say. He was very competitive, just couldn't find the gap, and at the end 0.4 of a second between first and second place overall. And so let's just refresh our memories. Franco Colapinto winning, as you can see, 0.41 of a second from David Vidales. Mari Boyer, the top rookie driver, also a Spaniard, finishing third. Then Paul Aron from Estonia, Mikhail Belov from Russia, Alex Quinn from Britain, Adrien David from France, Zane Maloney from Barbados, another French driver, Nizek Hadja, and keeping the cosmopolitan tone running, Dino Beganovic from Sweden, Gabriel Bortoletto from Brazil, and our championship leader. No points today for Gregoire Saucy in 12th place overall, but he's still sitting very, very well placed in the championship. So some days are up and some days are down, but the average this season for Gregoire Saucy has been very much, his days have been up. And almost all of the 34 starters got to finish the race. All the way down to the bottom of that screen, 29th and 30th, the two female racers, Belen Garcia and Lena Buller, very close at the end, just 7/10 of a second between the pair of them. And we only had a couple of stumblers. Alexandra Bardinon did not finish, and I think one other driver also failed to make the end. But all experience being gained out around this circuit. So many twists and turns. And so let's see, Nicola Marinangeli, Jasin Ferrati, and it was Patrick Pasma. He was the one who had a problem, didn't get to start the race with the others, and was half a lap down. So that was the first of the two races for the Formula Regional Championship, organised by ACI Sport and Alpine, but really the name written large across the lot at the top of it is Franco Colapinto, a teenage racer from Argentina who's come up to Europe this season, gained a huge amount of experience, and to come top in this championship on the track as he has for the last meeting and for this shows he's a driver very, very much on top of his game. He's got to do it all again tomorrow, and conditions are due to be very different indeed. They're supposed to be full sunshine and very hot, so a bit of driver attention to tyre wear will be something they have to get under their belts. And as the skies start to darken a little bit here, it's certainly smiling and bright in the land of Franco Colapinto. He's got to do it all again tomorrow. But for the rivals, they've got to scratch their heads, think about how they can beat him. But for Colapinto, it's been a fantastic Saturday here at Valencia.